Hi everyone and welcome to the Empowered You podcast. I'm Chavi Israel, your host, speaking to you from Sydney, Australia. After October 7, I found myself in uncomfortable situations, not sure how to respond or navigate. That's why I created the Empowered You, first an organization and now a podcast to equip you with the knowledge, skills and tools surrounding Israel and your Jewish identity. In each episode, we'll explore various topics from multiple perspectives so that you can feel informed, empowered, and proud of who you are. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Hi everyone, it's Chavi Israel here from the Empowered You. I'm currently in Melbourne, Australia, and I thought that I had to share with you guys my teacher, Rabbi Yehuda Hoch, who to me really exemplifies what it means to be a Chossid, what it means to be a mensch, a Jewish person who has a lot of Yiras Shamayim, fear and awe of God, but also a lot of Ahavas Hashem, a lot of love for Hashem, and most importantly, love for another Jew. What makes Rabbi Hoch, in my eyes, really a special man is that he is the most humble, unassuming man that you would have ever met. You come across him and you think, yeah, he's a nice guy, but little do you know how learned he is. And for me, it's his humility that I find very enticing. And I love learning from him as well, because everything that he says, he truly practices what he preaches. And I am in Melbourne, as I said, and I am very fortunate that thanks to the Kornhauses, Eliezer and Luba Kornhauser, who have a seminary here in Melbourne called Merkos, which is a very great seminary. I highly recommend for girls who are looking after school. But in their seminary, every morning, I think it's been over 10 years, they have a Chassidus class, specifically a Tanya class. And for those who are not sure what the Tanya is, the Tanya is a book written by the first Chabad Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe, and it is that is designed to guide everyday, ordinary people in reaching their highest potential. And the Tanya unpacks all different things, working on oneself, how to overcome challenges, how to be besimcha, how to be happy, and how to love another Jew. If you need more information on what the Tanya is, feel free to look up the Tanya on chabad.org. I recorded this morning's session. The date in Melbourne is Monday, the 10th of November. It's the 19th day of Cheshvan, 5786. And this was just a class that I recorded, but I think that all of you will very much appreciate and enjoy. And please let me know in the comments if you would like some more. For me, learning Torah is the most empowering thing as a Jew, especially when I learn Chassidus, especially when I learn the Tanya. I feel uplifted, I feel inspired, and I feel that I can be who I am loudly and proudly, and it just propels me forward and it reminds me of why I started the Empowered You. So I hope that everyone enjoys and that you gain as much as I did.
We're within, the Rebbe says, within 3 days of Chav Cheshvan is already connected to Chav Cheshvan. Chav Cheshvan is tonight, the birthday of the Rebbe Rashab, the 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe. So, special time, a lot of good energy in the air. Before we enter our Perek of Tanya, as is customary here, we're going to learn a letter of the Rebbe. And this letter was a letter that the Rebbe addressed to a young man who found challenges in his journey towards becoming more observant. This is what the Rebbe has to say to him. In response to your letter, you write some of your past experiences in life, where you're at in life, what you're up to nowadays. You're involved in education of youth. And you very much want to connect more and more to Torah. But you find day-to-day life of trying to be connected more and more to Torah, full of stumbling blocks and other kinds of disturbances. Cholila v'chas, God forbid. It's known that which is explained in the books of Musar, Ubeyeser besifrei Chassidus, and this is even more illuminated in the books of Chassidus. We know that according to a camel is its weight. You don't put more onto a camel than it could handle. So if that's how human beings understand that you don't load a camel with too much weight, the same is true, of course, from heaven, that they don't give you more than you could handle. And so if you're finding all kinds of challenges and tests coming your direction, it's because you have the koyach to overcome. You have the power. You have it in you to overcome these challenges. Otherwise, they won't come your way. Now that would be true 100 years ago as well. That was always true, that the challenges that come to a person is only because that person has the capability to overcome that challenge. In our generation, it's even easier and better. We see practically, on the ground, when a person decides, resolves with the proper strength to go in the upright way, according to the upright book, which is our holy Torah, we see shakishuyim pechusim ma'asher shi'eru mireish. You will find that the challenges and the issues that at the outset appear to be huge diminish. They're much smaller and much easier to tackle than what you originally assessed. And the strength that you will find inside you to overcome those challenges are a lot more mighty than what you thought. So the problem gets smaller and the power gets bigger. That God never gives a person a challenge that they cannot handle. If you have a challenge in life, you have to know that it's according to the camel, is its weight, is its load. There's no question that you can overcome it. But in earlier generations, it would take a lot more effort to overcome. But in our generation, we are blessed that the challenges are not really that big. They look big. And the strength inside you might feel small, but it's huge. So the moment you take on the challenge, you will find that the problem gets smaller and your inner strength is a lot more than what you assessed. If this is true for any individual, especially nowadays, much more so, when you're a person who many people are dependent on, which means you are an educator. You're a guide to others. Each in their own way. You don't have to be a teacher. You could be a guide in any way. You could be a leader in a community, an communal activist. You could be a leader amongst your friends in your social group. But someone who other people are dependent on, who is an influencer, that anything that you will increase will be multiplied by many, because any achievement that you make will reflect in all of your students. So for sure you have a lot of strength behind you to be able to overcome the challenges. And about all of the above, we have the adage of our sages that nothing stands in the way of will. Especially when you think properly about the tremendous responsibility and tremendous opportunity that is on your shoulders. If we know that one who helps one soul of Israel, one person, it's as if you help the whole world, because every soul is a whole world. That's why Adam HaRishon came on his own to the world. He was the only person to tell you that every person is a whole world. God could have created, a couple hundred people to start off with, Let's get things started, not with one person. Yeah, because there's a powerful lesson in that. That every person is a olam maleh, is a whole world. So if saving one life and helping one person is considered as if you help the entire world, alachas kama v'kama, kama nefashos, how much more so when you help more than one person. And that's especially true when you are helping the youth. In the very near future, each one of these young people will build a home amongst the Jewish people. And the way they run their home is going to be under the influence of their education as children. So you have to realize what kind of power you have. If you're in a position of educating other people, how much more so young people, then every good deed that you do has a ripple effect and to no end. You never know how far that's going to go and how many generations that could reach. Because you influence this young person, they get married, they build a home, their home is under the influence that you gave them, that affects their children, that affects their children's friends in school, you just have no idea how far it could reach. So you certainly have a lot of bracha, a lot of strength from above given to you to overcome your challenges, and the challenges will get small as you take them on. And the Rebbe signs off with blessing for good news and all of the above. Okay, that's our letter for today. And now we're going to continue in our chapter of Tanya. We're in the middle of Perek Lamed Beis. Perek Lamed Beis can be found on page Mem Aleph. Bottom number is 147. We're going to give some context to the perek that we're at. A little bit more, a bit of a wider lens than we've discussed till now. This chapter 32, is actually a flow, a continuation from a journey that started in chapter 26. In chapter 26, the Alter Rebbe established that it is essential for a Yid, for a Jew, to be besimcha. You have to be full of joy. That's an absolute necessity. Our sages say, Ivdu Hashem besimcha, serve God with joy. And there's the teaching of the Arizal, that if you don't serve God with joy, even if you do serve God, it's just not good enough. One has to be filled with joy. The Chassidim had different names at different stages. At some stage they were called the Kat, the cult. And at one stage they were called the Freilicher, the happy ones, because it was like unusual for a religious Jew to look so happy. You thought if you're religious, you take that very seriously. God's always watching you. You better be careful. And you look very serious and somber. That was a sign of religiosity. You're like, wow, this guy takes it really, he's for real. But all of a sudden you have these people that are dancing, they're happy, there's smiles on their face, and they're very observant. Maybe more observant than the guys that are all fakvetched and all intense. So they were called the Freilicher, the happy ones. And this is essential from the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, that we have to serve Hashem with joy. So in Perek Chavav, the Alter Rebbe begins a journey explaining the importance of serving Hashem with joy. And the Alter Rebbe says that life is a wrestling match. Until you're a tzaddik, as long as you have an evil inclination inside you, which is basically everyone, it's very rare to have completely defeated the negative, the Yetzer Hara, Nefesh Bahamis. There's a struggle. At every turn in life, there's a struggle. Why am I going to have this cup of tea? For the sake of heaven, or because I just like tea? Why am I going to go to sleep? Because I'm tired and I want to relax, or because I need to get up and serve God tomorrow morning, so I have to be refreshed? Everything in life is a challenge to make sure that it's all focused on your inner purpose in life, which is, as it says in Gemara Kiddushin, in Kiddushin, Ani loy nivresi l'shamish es koini, that I was Ani loy nivresi Ella, thank you. Someone's listening. I was not created save for the purpose of serving God. That's my purpose. And life is a challenge to make sure that you're always doing that. And when you're in a wrestling match, says Alter Rebbe, you have to be full of joy. Because even if you're stronger than your opponent, if you're feeling sluggish and lazy and down or depressed, then you are likely to lose. It's of utmost importance that you're filled with alacrity, with simcha, with energy. And so therefore, simcha is a complete necessity in Avodas Hashem, in serving Hashem. And the Alter Rebbe goes on to say that yes, of course, there's different challenges in life, and sometimes real challenges. And he goes through all the different challenges that a person could have, whether it be material challenges, or like earning a livelihood, or issues with health, God forbid, or issues with children, God forbid. And he teaches us how to deal with those challenges and how to have the right perspective and still be happy. He teaches us how to deal with challenges that are spiritual challenges, when a person is not the person they'd like to be. There's failure. They're not happy with who they are now or who they were in the past, and that could bring a person down. He shows us how and guides us very carefully of how to make sure that you remain joyous throughout all of that. And we discussed at length in the earlier chapters, 26, 27, 28. Then he gets to 29 and 30, where he says sometimes you do need a bit of a shock treatment. You do need a bit of a shakeup. In those chapters, he discusses a person shaking themselves up, deflating their own ego, crushing themselves a bit. But sometimes in life, it could happen not that you chose to, but you just go through a rough patch. And you got shaken up, and you were broken, you were hurt. And the Alter Rebbe shows us how even in those difficult times, or even when you do have to give yourself a bit of a shock treatment to deflate your ego, nevertheless, you can and must remain happy. And the way that you remain happy is by prioritizing your godly soul over your animal soul. Identifying with your godly soul. Tikar nafshe be'enav. Those are the words of the Alter Rebbe. Let your godly soul be precious in your eyes, more precious in your eyes. So yes, the animal soul and the body could be lowly. I made mistakes. And maybe it's not something I'm so proud of. But I prioritize my godly soul. And my godly soul is happy. Because every time I do a mitzvah, and every time I study Torah, and especially when I learn, when I daven, my soul is returning back to her Father in heaven. It returns back to the embrace of her Father in heaven, out of prison, out of captivity, which was the body and animal soul, and back to the palace. And there's no greater joy than a prince coming back from prison. And so let's focus on the joy of the godly soul, and that could be at any moment, no matter how low of a person I am, no matter what my past looks like. My godly soul, at this very moment, could be very joyous by me giving what it needs, and that is returning her to her Father in heaven by learning Torah or doing a mitzvah, and especially by davening. Through prayer, a person immerses themselves in godliness. You say the words of davening, word by word. You're talking directly to the Creator. The neshama is mamish, feeling one with Hashem.
So with Torah, it's a greater unity.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works.
Torah is a greater unity, but in terms of the feeling of the soul, the soul consciously feels more united at the time of prayer. Okay, at the time of davening. So a person could be joyous by prioritizing the godly soul. We even added that the animal soul doesn't have to be out of this equation, because you can even realize that when you do a mitzvah, you're also influencing the animal soul and body. At the end of the day, you put the tefillin on your hand, you light the Shabbos candles with your hand, you eat the matzah with your mouth, and you shave the lulav and esrog with your hands. You say, everything involves your body and animal soul, so they are also being elevated, and that's actually the whole purpose of why we come into this world, to elevate the body and animal soul, and therefore you can really be joyous despite recognizing the lowliness of the body. That was the last chapters. Then the Alter Rebbe comes to chapter 32, And this is like the wider lens that I want to add over here, which the Rebbe explains, that chapter 32 is a direct flow of this. The Rebbe wants to tell you that if you're going to be a happy person, if you're going to have simcha in your service of Hashem, which we just said now would require you to prioritize your godly soul, to identify with your godly soul, then another amazing quality that's going to come out of that is love of a fellow Jew. So joy will not only make you always victorious against the animal soul in your struggle in life, in the wrestling match, but it's also going to bring you to actually love another Jew. And why will it bring you to love every Jew equally, from the greatest to the smallest? Because if you identify with a body, if you're a body person, you're an animal soul person, which means your aim in life is, what's the next meal? When's the next holiday? Who has a nicer house? What kind of car do I drive, etc.? If that's your aim in life, so then bodies are separate. And you look at another person, you feel separate from them. And the only kind of relationship you can have with them is if you can gain something from them. In the words of our sages, Ava Tluya B'davar. It's going to be a dependent love. It's a love that depends on something, which means it's not a real love. You don't love them. You love what you get out of them. Like the famous story about the salmon, that the salmon Nebuch got pulled away from his family by the fishermen, and he's all upset and he's crying, but he hears the fisherman saying that the king loves salmon, so he says, it's okay, at least I'm going to someone who loves me. He wasn't happy leaving his family, but at least he'll have someone who loves him. And he comes, and he's put on a golden plate, and the king starts to eat him with a fork and a knife, and the salmon in his last dying breath says, you don't love salmon, you love yourself. You like the taste of salmon. So a relationship that's tluya b'davar is not a relationship. It's that you like what you get out of that person. That's not love. So as long as your priority in life, your focus in life is physical, is body, is materialism, you can't really love another person. But if you follow the recipe of last chapter, which is tikar nafshe be'enav, that you're a neshama person, that what's important to you is Torah and mitzvahs, that's your focus, that's what you want out of life, you want a connection to Hashem. So then, you see another Yid, and you know they have a neshama, and you have a neshama, and our neshamas are one. The neshamas are so one, more than siblings, and more than one body. It's like the seed of the father before it even develops into a body that has hands and feet. Where there's, even though it's one body, but there's different parts of the body. But the neshamas in their core are even more united than the limbs of a body. They're totally one. So you see another Yid, and they have a neshama, you have a neshama, which means you're totally one with them. So if neshama is important to you, then you see neshama in the other person, and on that level you're one. So the simcha, which comes from prioritizing your godly soul, will also bring you to absolute love of a fellow Jew. V'hafta l'reacha kamecha, that you love a fellow like you love yourself, because they are yourself. And that's where we left off. We read a few more lines, but we'll read it again in this context. Now, with this wider lens, that the Alter Rebbe is showing the advantage of joy. So the Alter Rebbe will continue to show the tremendous advantage of serving God with joy, that not only does it bring also to Avas Yisrael, to love of a fellow Jew, but it actually brings to the entire Torah. When you're besimcha, when you're full of joy, because you prioritize your godly soul over your animal soul, then that will bring you to fulfillment of the entire Torah. And that's the next line. So we're going to start reading inside. Again, bottom number is 147. It's about 10 lines up from the bottom of the page. The line starts with the word Bein Nehem.
Can I ask a question quickly?
Sure.
What does it look like practically to prioritize your body? So like in your schedule, like to make that the focus of your day?
When you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you do? If the first thing you do is Maidani, you wake up and you say, what am I here for? Who am I? I'm a neshama that came down into a body, into a nefesh habamis, in order to bring godliness into this world. So you right away talk to God. That's the first thing you do. Maidani l'fanechi. That's the first thing. And then you wash your hands, and then you say brachas. You talk to God right away, because that's the main thing in your life. And before you eat a food, you make sure you say a bracha. And there's no way in the world that you can eat the food if it's not 100% kosher. And after you eat the food, you're going to bench. And so on. That means that the driving force in your life is, your decision making is based on your neshama, on what Hashem wants from you. That's prioritizing your neshama. But if a person wakes up and they first go check their their social media to see if there's anything new, or check the news, or check their business dealings, or check their bank accounts, or check whatever, and then and the food, if it's as long as it pretty much has a hechsher, whatever, as long as it's not mamish chazir treif, I can eat it, and I might say a bracha, I might not say a bracha. In other words, my life is body. I want physical things, and I was born into an observant family, so I remember I have to say a bracha. I'm being bad if I don't, so let's do it. But my priority and my focus in life is body. I don't enjoy my holy work. I'm waiting for the time that I get a break from the holy work. When am I going to go on holidays? When can I retire? So that's body. Let's continue inside. This is what Hillel, the elder, said about the fulfillment of this mitzvah of loving a fellow Jew. That this is the entire Torah, and the rest is commentary, etc. Go and learn the commentary. So, as we mentioned last week, the Alter Rebbe is referencing a story that happened where there was a convert. He didn't yet convert, but he's called a convert. We know that in halacha it's called a convert who converted. There's no such thing as a non-Jew converted, because if he's a non-Jew, he'll never convert. Because a goy never became a yid. It's not possible for a goy to become a yid. Someone who does become a yid is because they were already a convert. They already had a special soul. They already had a Jewish soul that was locked. And a special Jewish soul, because it was challenged to be born in a non-Jewish family and have to find its way back. Not every soul can be challenged in such a way. Anyway, this convert came to Shammai, and he said, "Teach me the whole Torah while I stand on one foot." So Shammai took a nice 2x4 and told him, "If you don't get out of here fast, I'll hit you over the head." That's pretty much what Shammai said to him. The guy ran, but he didn't give up. He didn't give up because the guy was serious. And he went to Hillel. He said, "Teach me the whole Torah while I stand on one foot." And Hillel answered him. Hillel chose to communicate with this guy. And he said, that which is hated to you, don't do to your friend. That is the entire Torah. The rest of the Torah, the 613 mitzvahs, 612 other mitzvahs, are all a commentary on this one thing. The Zil Gemara, go study the commentary. But that's you want the elevator pitch? There you go. That's Judaism. And the guy became a religious Jew, a sincere Yid. Now you might say, I like Shammai style. That's more my style. I don't like this chutzpah, ridiculous thing. The Alter Rebbe says, no, Hillel Hazakin. He could have said Hillel. He said Hillel Hazakin, Hillel the elder, to bring out that Hillel was the leader of the Jewish people at that time. He was the Nasi. He's the example they have to follow. And the Alter Rebbe is also called Admor Hazakin, perhaps hinting to us also that we have to follow the instructions that are given to us in the Tanya. But Hillel said to him this line, and this line is very perplexing, because how could you say that the entire Torah is what's hated to you, don't do unto another? Love a fellow Jew, basically. Why? How can you say that's the whole Torah? That's the entire Torah. You could say it's a main rule in the Torah. At least it's the basis of all of the mitzvahs between man and their fellow. But what about tefillin? What about matzah? What about lulav and esrog? What? Sorry?
The Shema.
Yeah, what about the Shema? And you shall love Hashem. How does that have to do with loving a fellow Jew? How could you say that loving a fellow Jew is the basis of why I should shake lulav and esrog, or why I should eat matzah on the night of Pesach, or any other mitzvah that's between man and God?
What are you if not?
Sorry?
What are you if not?
Why? Because I love a fellow Jew.
What are you if not? If you don't love a fellow Jew and you're not doing it l'shem yechud kudsha b'rich v'shrinte, then what are you doing it for?
Because God told you to do it. Hashem told you that you should put on tefillin every day. What does it have to do with a relationship with another Jew? Hashem told me to put on tefillin every day, so I have to put it on.
One body.
Okay, so you're offering an explanation. So let's see the explanation the Alter Rebbe gives. But at first glance, it's perplexing. It's hard to understand. And Rashi says it's not the entire Torah; it's a main rule in the Torah. But the problem is that he actually says Zeu kol haTorah kula. It is the entire Torah. Rashi offers another explanation and says that your friend, to love your friend, means Hashem. And he brings a pasuk that shows that God is called your friend, and loving your friend means to love Hashem, and that's why it's the base of the whole Torah. But that's also not literal, obviously. But here the Alter Rebbe explains why, in fact, the mitzvah of loving a fellow as yourself is the entire Torah. In the words of the Alter Rebbe, Ki yesed v'sherish kol haTorah hu lagbiya v'laleit hanefesh al haguf. Because the foundation of the entire Torah, the purpose of the whole Torah is to lift your soul over your body, all the way up to its source, which means to lift your soul even above its own personal agenda. Not only above the body, but above its own personal agenda, to absolute selflessness, where it's totally one with God. That's the purpose of the entire Torah. So, as we said before, you wake up in the morning, you say Maidani. You don't, it's not a breakfast in bed type of thing, Breakfast in bed for people if the body is the main thing. So that sounds great, breakfast in bed. But if the soul is the main thing, that's a disaster. Right? You have to say Maidani, and then you have to say blessings in the morning. And when there's food, you have to make sure that it's kosher. Make a bracha before and a bracha after. Okay, afterwards. Everything in its right time.
The kids can bring you breakfast on Mother's Day.
Yeah, everything in the right time. So, Yiddishkeit is all about that. Yiddishkeit is all about prioritizing soul over body. Identifying more with soul over body. That's everything we do. Is about, before you went to work and you earned money for tzedakah, you take your earnings and you give 10% to, you went to work, you earned money for your family, you take 10% and you give it to charity. You make challah, you have to give a part of it over to the kohen. You have a field full of produce, you have to give 10% to the Levi, and 1 out of 50 to the kohen, and so on. It's constantly reminding you and bringing out soul over body, that you should identify with your soul. That's what Yiddishkeit is all about. So when a person will practice Judaism properly and genuinely, they take it for real, then they are going to be a person who identifies with soul. And therefore, they're going to love every Jew. And so the litmus test to see whether you are properly observant is whether you love a fellow Jew. And if you don't feel a love to a fellow Jew, then there's something wrong in your observance. Because the whole point of Torah is lahales hanefesh al haguf, that you start to identify with soul. That's Yiddishkeit. That's why we daven. That's why we learn. That's why we do mitzvahs, to allow the neshama to connect with Hashem. The neshama is in the driver's seat. Whatever we do requires soul and body. Godly soul, animal soul, and body. The question is, who's in the driver's seat? They're all going along, and whatever you do, but who's the driver? So Yiddishkeit makes the godly soul the driver. At every moment in life. Before I go to bed, I have to say Kriyash Mashalamita. When I go to bed, you have to go to sleep on this side and wake up on that side. When you put on your shoes, put this on your shoe first. Then the other, then tie the other, and then everything you do. You shower, Yiddishkeit tells you how you have to shower. In other words, that at every turn in life, the driver is the godly soul. So if you do this for real, you're not just doing you're just going through the motions, but you're identifying, connecting with Yiddishkeit. When you're davening, you're talking to Hashem, and when you're learning Hashem's Torah. So then you are a soul person, and that you will definitely love a fellow Jew, because on a soul level, all Jews are one. It's mamish litmus test, and that's what Hillel said. This person, what's the Torah? Love of a fellow Jew. That's when you hit that. That's the climax. You know you're in a good place. Idach pirushu. Now go do mitzvahs. That's all commentary on loving a fellow Jew. When you feel that you look at every Jew, you love them, you're doing all right. Then you've internalized Judaism. Yeah.
What happens if someone, I mean, I know it's your ego, but if someone really, really hurts you, like God forbid, I guess they had in the times of the Beis Hamikdash Ari Mikla, but like if someone like killed your child even though it was an accident, how can the Alter Rebbe expect someone to love someone who, let's say, would do such a thing, even though it was an accident?
You have to look at empathy and pity. Actually, you have to look at different.
Their actions are different from their soul.
Seriously.
Okay, so that's an extreme situation.
Yeah, I just brought an extreme situation.
Yeah, it's an extreme situation. We're talking regular times, but the truth is that a person who is really a neshama yid, looks through everything, and they believe that everything's b'hashgacha pratis, right? So I'm talking about theory. Okay, that's easy to talk about it.
This person was obviously the shliach for what I needed to learn about myself to make me a better person. They didn't choose to. It was.
That's exactly, yeah, that's right. The Alter Rebbe says this in chapter 12 of Tanya. The Alter Rebbe says, "Lilmid mi Yosef echav." What you could learn from Yosef and his brothers, that Yosef was goimel lachayavim tevis. They tried to kill him. Then they sold him into slavery. And Yosef said, "I know what your intentions were, but at the end of the day, what you did was you were a shliach. You were doing God's mission, because otherwise you would not have been successful. No one could do anything to you that's not meant to be. So you're God's emissaries, and whatever Hashem does is for the good. So therefore, you were messengers for good. That was not necessarily your intention. But at the end of the day, you were messengers for good, because what you did came from God, and if it's from God, it's good. Doesn't mean that the person doesn't have to be punished. But yes, a deep look, a deep soul look at life will have you acting like Yosef, that Yosef embraced his brothers, even though these other people who tried to kill him, and then sold him into slavery, are ready to, totally distance him from the family. They don't want to know of him. But he embraces them because he was a soul person.
After he put them through.
But he only did that for their benefit. He did it for their benefit, before I explained. But it wasn't that he had hatred.
Tested them,
He tested them. He wanted to.
With the intentions, he had to get them to do teshuvah.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, Yosef didn't hold a grudge against them. He, on the contrary, was goimel lachayavim tevis. He did goodness. He acted to them with kindness, despite their behavior. Yeah.
In that day, one of the hostages who came out of the Tanya, and I can't remember, they were waving white flags or whatever, but one of the soldiers killed one of the hostages.
Yeah.
And the mother, instead of, obviously she was upset. She embraced and told him how much she loved him, the soldier.
Yeah.
And forgave him.
And she said to him, don't feel bad.
That's a great example.
Don't have 1 second of feeling chata, or feeling that but she invited him for Shabbos.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Take him under her wing.
That's a great example.
You also say that you love the soul, but you don't necessarily love the actions.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think also, like we said last lesson, that it's important to know that you can love someone, but you don't have to like them. And like Claire was saying, there's also different levels of forgiveness where you don't wish them harm, but you don't wish them necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah, correct.
Less, and so it's every day it's a challenge, and you're growing and working on yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, we should all be like Yosef HaTzadik one day, and maybe we will be like Yosef HaTzadik. But we don't have to like them, but we can forgive them, and we can still feel love for them, meaning, if God forbid they're in a situation, if they're chas v'shalom drowning, we can jump in without a question and save their life, because we love them, but we don't need to like them, we don't need to go for walks of coffee with them.
Yeah, that's true. And also, someone just shared that about one of the hostages who was unfortunately shot by a soldier.
Listen to this.
and his mother embraced him, and the mother of the soldier. Yeah, go ahead.
Girls,
You say.
No, she couldn't hear. She couldn't hear because he's
One of the hostages and the soldier didn't recognise him as a Jew. He thought it was because I think they were waving white flags or whatever.
Yes.
And he shot him. And the mother embraced the soldier who was, freaking out. And he said, I love you and I forgive you and everything's fine and don't worry.
Yeah, I know that mother.
Yeah.
Short red hair.
There you go.
But just a quick question. When it says this is the whole Torah, while the rest is common, what rest are we talking about?
The rest of the Torah.
The rest of it. We're talking about the other
12.
612 mitzvahs, because all of them are about prioritizing your soul over your body. So if you...
So why would it say just commentary? Why didn't it put in the same, but this is also...
It's commentary, it's an explanation of how to get the love of a fellow Jew. All of this, every mitzvah deals with a different part of your soul. The tefillin on your hand, and when you do all the mitzvahs, that's when you get to a place where you're a soul person and you're going to love every fellow Jew. So it's all like commentary, an explanation of how to get there. That's like the ultimate. And that's a litmus test. If you don't love a fellow Jew, it's a big question on your Yiddishkeit. It's a heavy sin. Now it also works. We need a bell. We have to bring the bell back.
Also, with you loving your fellow Jew, you're using every single part of you. It's kind of like akin to even learning Torah with Hashem. When we learn Torah with Hashem, we're connecting with the Achdus of Hashem. Could you say that when you're helping another Jew, like the story that you said about, oh my gosh, my brain. My Gashmis is your Ruchnius?
Yeah.
Who was the Chossid?
Reb Itcha the Masmid.
Thank you.
The Chalva, yeah.
So you say that it's the same thing, and that's why Hashem says, if you want to connect with me, help another Jew. That is the ultimate, because when you're helping another Jew, you're using all of your limbs, every single part of you.
Yeah, that's true.
Does Dr. ever say
It's also
that?
true. It's definitely that, like the top. It's the ultimate. Helping another Yid is like the sign that you are connected to Hashem. It means that you are identifying with your soul. And yes, I just want to say a little bit the other way around. That when you help, it's not just that by doing all the mitzvahs you'll get to love of a fellow Jew, but it works the other way also. By loving a fellow Jew, that forces you to become a neshama person, and that will lead you to doing all the other mitzvahs. So it can work either way. Sometimes it says that the gateway to loving Hashem is loving another Jew. So it works either way. It works either way. But the point is that this is the entire Torah. So the Alter Rebbe is bringing out over here. That not only is the mitzvah, is the idea of simcha important in terms of overcoming the Yetzer Hara in life, but it'll bring you to love of a fellow Jew. And furthermore, it'll bring you to fulfillment of the entire Torah. And that's all through simcha. So there's really a continuation of the earlier chapters. Now we're going to bring another aspect of what mitzvahs are all about. What Torah mitzvahs are all about. One second. What Torah mitzvahs are all about, which is, this is from below to above, a person refining themselves. When you refine yourself and make yourself a soul person, that's when you get to love of a fellow Jew. We'll see that it works the other way around also. There's by drawing down godly light. But that will, Be'ez Hashem, we'll continue with tomorrow. But you have a question, and then we'll do halacha and a short story.
So just wondering the reason why they prioritize Avat Yisrael over, say, saying the Shema, which is like a direct connecting with Hashem. Is that because it's less obvious that you're connecting with Hashem with Avat Yisrael, and it's more of a challenge? That's why it's a greater merit?
To say Shema could mean that you love God. Okay, you have a connection with God. But it doesn't necessarily mean that in your life you've completely identified with your godly soul in every area. Okay, when you say Shema, you feel Shema. What about when you're at work? What about when you're exercising or when you're sleeping? But when a person loves another Jew for real and they actually feel one with another Jew, it means that they are totally identifying with the godly soul, which means that every aspect of Yiddishkeit has permeated them on all levels. That's who they are. So it's the greatest sign of an observant Yid, the love of fellow Jew. Yeah.
But there can be like moments that you feel that way, and then other moments.
Yeah, because we're not perfect and we don't get into one gear and that's it. We got into the gear, let's say we davened well and we were inspired and we're identifying with that neshama we love every yid. But we have an nefesh Bahamis and the next day is a new challenge and a new journey. And it could be this not even the next day, a little while later. That's how we are. Until you're a tzaddik, there's constant battle. But this is the place where you want to be. Yeah.
So if there's like sometimes when you're in a flow of like doing the right thing and like I'm saying let's say good davening and good learning whatever, and then that's when you don't want to be around people. That probably means it's coming from not a good place.
No, it's a good thing. It's a good thing, a good davening, good learning. But it does say, excuse me, that after a person davens, sometimes if the energy is not grounded, it's like an electricity needs to be grounded. It can turn into anger because there's a lot of energy and it doesn't know where to go. So that's what it says from learn. Yeah. From davening, you have to go straight to learning, because when you learn, even something, advar halacha, something, it helps ground it to make it more sort of sustainable. But if it's just a davening, it could be, it's like wild energy. It needs to be channeled.
By the way, I thought of the perfect example of someone who's really doing a mitzvah for another Jew. I think that the soldiers in Eretz Yisrael, the Tzahal, because they're not only protecting Eretz Yisrael and Am Yisrael, but they're literally giving their lives for Pikuach Nefesh, the ultimate self-sacrifice, the ultimate mitzvah. I just was thinking of an example where you're using every part of yourself and you're literally giving over yourself to save another Jew.
Yeah, the Rebbe actually said that it's hard to imagine something holier and greater than someone who risks their lives, puts their life on the line to save other Yidden. Mamish. I actually just spoke to a soldier. He stands for a cheder. He told me he was in Lebanon. I said, how was he? He said, they had a good time. 2 hours a day they had to work. The rest of the time they watched movies and they hung out. I guess they have different shifts. But he said they had a good time. They had amazing success there. Baruch Hashem. But he said that we are there and you feel like you're fighting for your family back home. You're there because of our family back home. And that's what it is. We're Am Yisrael. And mamish, young people putting their life on the line, and literally, and unfortunately, a lot of them came back injured. And there's mamish heroes. There's tzaddikim gemurim. The Rebbe spoke about them when they were in Operation Entebbe. Some people say, how could they do it on Shabbos? All that stuff. The Rebbe said, these are complete tzaddikim. You know, don't touch these people. This is the holiest thing you could do. Okay, let's.
What is a much better comparison with the soldier and their dedication and what they are fulfilling. But even when Bochurim are going to the Tzoyim, they're really what they keep in mind. Some people take it as, and I heard that comments all the time, from people, are you collecting points? In a way, there is something in it. So you're doing it for the person and the outcome that this particular person will put on film and do the mitzvah. But when you think about it, the fact of going, the fact of putting on film, you connect as well, and you get into the level of all your body and your thoughts. Why would you do it otherwise? If you wouldn't have this Achvas Yisrael, why would you have even that thought? What would you be trying? Flybys. So in a way, the whole body goes through the fulfilling the mitzvah. So
there's something to it. But I think that the average Lubavitcher person who has education, the Rebbe's education, when they go on Mitzrayim, they feel like it's a duty. It's not points. Of course, you feel great when you got a lot of people, but it's a duty. But that's what we have to do. We have to reach out. It's like, how could you not?
And you know what? It's not an easy duty. I always think when I walk in Bondi Junction and I see, and you don't see it all the time, maybe on a Friday, and I see the boys in their hat and their jackets asking people to put tefillin on. I always get emotional, and I always think about that Rebbe letter where he wrote about, the Chassidim walking in hats and jackets in Bondi Junction. And it's not easy, and it's not easy in this current world that we live in. It's not easy, I'm sure, in Melbourne, but it's not easy in Sydney either. And for me, when I see these boys, I feel inspired. Just seeing them in their hat and in their jacket, wearing their identity on their sleeves, being proud Yidden, that to me has already, they didn't even ask me to put tefillin on. That's okay. But that to me, they've
It's
already
inspiring.
inspired me. And I'm a firm Jew,
Yeah.
but they've inspired
So
me.
they're also
right.
soldiers. They're
Yeah.
also serving,
Yeah.
and they are
That's right. That's
on
right.
the front line.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's just conclude over here with our halacha and a short story. Okay, so tonight and tomorrow is Chav Cheshvan, and the birthday of the Rebbe Rashab, and it is customary to take upon oneself good resolutions in the area of learning and spreading Chassidus on this day. The Rebbe Rashab is called the Rambam of Chassidus, so it's a good time to strengthen our commitment to learning and to spreading Chassidus. We have a friend, we have a neighbor, we have someone we can reach out to, and it's a duty. We're talking about duty. We all have a duty to spread the light and bring people in. And you just never know. You never know. It could be just one person, but that one person has a family, has friends. So we have to make sure that we reach out. And I saw a letter of the Rebbe, of the previous Rebbe yesterday, and the previous Rebbe was writing to someone. He says, I hear that, your parnas is not so good yet. I'm sorry to hear that, and God willing, it should be good. You have a blessing. But my question to you is, what about your spiritual parnasa? Why do you think you live where you live? Don't you think you have a mission over there? That's the main point. That's what you were put there for. You have spiritual parnasa. How many people did you get to start putting on tefillin? How many people are eating kosher because of you? How many people are keeping taharas hamishpacha? It's like a heavy level, and you should know that all of your excuses are a bunch of nonsense. That's the very strong letter of the Rebbe Shach. So, yeah, that's the Friedrich Rebbe. Friedrich Rebbe sometimes.
We finished Bye-bye. Hey, that's my job.
Okay, so just to conclude over here with a short story. But anyway, Chav Cheshvan is a special time. It says also to go into Timchet Mimim, but for women, for sure, this is like Timchet Mimim. It says, this Timchet Mimim is whatever it is. Yeah, this is where we learn Chassidus, and for sure, it's a special time to actually come to a Moised that is inspired by the Rebbe Rashab. So for sure, it's a good day to come tomorrow. If you were questioning anyone online, you can come in person, if it's possible, and if you get on an airplane. But if it's within proximity, And just to finish off with a story that Rabbi Bro shared this Motzei Shabbos. Some of you may have heard it. A very interesting story that there was a certain Yid. His name was Moshe, and he was a businessman. And he had a problem because his shoes needed to be fixed. And it was, I guess it was winter, whatever. He needed his shoes fixed. And but it was Sunday. And the Christians, Sunday is, no work day. So he went and he said this, he saw this guy, this non-Jewish guy who was a shoemaker. He went over to him and says, could you fix my shoes? And the guy says, don't you know, today is Sunday, we don't work on Sunday. He says, it's a bunch of nonsense, this Sunday thing. It's not, no one believes in it. Even your own priest, if you need something done on Sunday, he works on Sunday, trust me. I said, it's a bunch of nonsense. Don't worry about it. Nothing's going to happen to you. And he spoke to the guy for a while. Finally, the guy said, you're offering me a good pay for the job, and you say it's nonsense, fine. So he put on his work clothes, and he started to fix his shoes. Anyway, this guy's friends come, and they see that he's working, his work clothes on, he's working, he's pounding with his hammer and fixing the shoes. They're like, what's going on? You don't know, it's Sunday today. So he says, I spoke to Moshe the Jew, he told me it's a bunch of nonsense, and even our priest, he doesn't keep it, no one believes in it. It's okay, you can work on Sunday. So they thought, okay, we'll also work on Sunday. And before he knew it, in that town, a lot of people started to work on Sunday. And the priest found out, the local priest, and he said, what's going on over here? Everyone's frying out. They're not from anymore. Sunday, everyone's working. So anyway, he did some research, and he found out that it all goes back to Moshe the Jew. So he called the local police chief of that little area, told him what's happening, and the local police chief was a big anti-Semite, was fuming. He made a big ordeal about it, and he decided he's going to go and have Moshe arrested. But at the time that it all blew up, Moshe was in Belz. He was visiting his Rebbe, Rabbi Yisachar Deva Belz. So his family quickly sent a message that he should not come back. It's dangerous, don't come back for a while, until things settle. Anyway, he told the Belzer Rebbe what's going on. And meanwhile, this is all mamish blowing up. This chief of police spoke to the chief of police of the entire region. It was a very recognized person. and they decided that they're going to have a court case against Moshe, and the local chief of police is in charge of collecting all the evidence. Moshe is there by the Belzer Rebbe, and he went to the Belzer Rebbe. He said, "What should I do? I'm so worried. I don't know." The Belzer Rebbe said, "Tell me exactly the words that you said to this guy." So he's like shaking. He said, "No, don't be afraid. Just tell me the words." So he said, "I told them that it's a bunch of nonsense. The whole Sunday thing is nonsense, and that even the priest doesn't keep it. It's don't have to worry about it." So the Belzer Rebbe looked at him and he says, "What you said is 100% true, and therefore you have nothing to fear." So he went home, and there was a court case. He was called to be in the big city where he was going to have to give held on trial. But before that, they had to collect evidence. So the chief of the head chief of police of the whole region called a meeting, and the chief of police of the local place where this Moshe lived was going to collect all the evidence. And this guy was having a blast. He was going to every guy and recording everything he could. He was enjoying it. This is going to really crush this Moshe. And he had it all down pat. He was ready. But as fate would have it, his clock was not running properly. So he was in his house, and the meeting was at 2:00, but his clock wasn't working properly. So he shows up a couple of hours late, because his clock was running late. And he shows up with his bag of all the evidence, all happy, and they're basically wrapping up the meeting. And the chief of police saw him, and he says, "How dare you walk in here so late? Like you own the place with all you're not even excusing yourself." Anyway, he tried to forgive, but he was already startled and afraid. And the chief of police took his whole bag of evidence and threw it into the fireplace. And now he wasn't even satisfied with that. He went up to the guy, and every badge that the guy had on his thing, he ripped off and threw into the fireplace. The guy, he says, "You're fired. You're nothing anymore. End of the case. This is the way you treat us. This is how much you have respect for this office. We don't need you. Case closed." And obviously it was a big simcha for this Moshe. A little while later, this Moshe it was winter, and he needed he bought some trees and they had to be chopped. So he's looking for someone to chop his wood, and he found some farmer. He says, "I'll pay you a couple of kopecks to chop the wood." Okay, the guy wanted the job. He comes to chop the wood, and he takes a better look at this guy, and he sees he was the chief of police. He lost everything. He became a little schlepper who had to chop. And the guy looked at him and says, "You think I don't know? It was your rabbi that did this to me." And anyway, that's the Mason. Okay. All right, shkoyach everyone, and we'll continue with Hashem tomorrow.